Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to 61 Bladedancer, probably one of the more difficult to play souls a rogue has in its arsenal. The rogue's Bladedancer soul offers excellent single target DPS as well as some pretty impressive AoE burst DPS. The learning curve, however, on this build can be pretty challenging, so in this guide I'll be showing you how to spend your points, which masteries to use, as well as how to easily pick up and play Bladedancer. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Looking at the soul tree breakdown, you'll see we put the full 61 points in Bladedancer. That is specifically to pick up the 61 point ability Faded Blades. It is the strongest stance that you have as a Bladedancer, so you definitely want to make sure that you pick that up. Moving over to the right one, we got the next tree. This is going to be Nightblade, 3 points in Burning Rage for 6% attack power and weapon damage. Moving to the third and final tree, you'll have 12 in Assassin for 5 in Murderous Intent to increase your physical damage by 10%, 2 in Ruthlessness to increase your critical hit chance by 2%, and 5 in Magnified Pain, which makes your critical hit attacks debuff the target, increasing damage taken from you by 5%. As an added bonus, with 12 points in Assassin, you also pick up Virulent Poison and Leeching Poison, which make up a good piece of DPS for you as well. Moving on down over here to the Masteries, level 61 we take Aggressive Defense. This will give you a nice little 3% maximum health shield every 6 seconds. Level 62, Revitalize will increase your incoming healing by 3%. Level 63 we take Sprinter's Guile, increased unmounted movement speed by 10%. The first 3 Masteries aren't very important. You can choose whichever one you prefer. However, these ones are the ones that I recommend. Moving up to 64, we take Time Focus for a nice single target DPS increase, as well as increasing the duration of your rhythmic actions by 6 seconds. Your rhythmic actions are your dances, such as Blade and Soul Parody and Faded Blades. By default, they last 24 seconds. With this Time Focus Mastery, they will now last 30 seconds, all of them, all 6 of them. Moving up to 65, we take Planar Variation. If you've watched any of my guides before, you know that usually I will recommend that you take the Planar Variation type of ability, simply because of its versatility. It can be a very powerful healing or DPS cooldown, and as a bonus with rogues, instead of it being a single target, it is an area of effect damage cooldown. If you do use this build for single target though, however, you can swap it to Energy Manipulation. That is your choice. So now we talked a little bit about the Masteries. Let's go ahead and discuss the macros. I only use one main macro here. This is going to be the Quick Strike macro. It's going to have your Precision Strike in it, your Quick Strike in it, your Binary Strike, and also Energy Manipulation there. So you'll notice that I have a Shift modifier here. That is so that if I want to cast the Precision Strike ability, I just hold Shift down and hit the 1 key. I'll explain how this works in the rotation section, but I'm very confident that this will be able to help streamline the build for you and maybe help some of you that may have been struggling with Bladedancer previously to maybe want to jump into it and give it another shot. The other 2 macros that I have here are just a K-Alert macro and a Break Free macro, because in Bladedancer you do get one more Break Free type of ability called Untangle. So that right there will allow you to break free twice. So that's it for the macros, guys. Let's go ahead and talk about the buffs and what's on the action bar here. Okay, so we'll start with the buffs down here at the bottom. Combat Preparation increases Dexterity by 85 on all party raid members. Typically will be overwritten in raid, but you can use it in experts and such in open world. Moving over to the right, we got the 2 poison buffs that we got from the Assassin tree. Make sure that those are always up. They make up a good anywhere between 1 to 2k or so of your DPS generally. Moving over right, we got the K-Alert here. Okay, now back over to the left, this is going to be your Energy Manipulation. It's grayed out right now because we don't have it selected. However, if you did choose to use this, you just want to preload this on yourself before you started the fight. Now on to probably the most important part of Bladedancer, that is the 5 DPS dances that you see here. The top 2 here are going to be the single target dances. The bottom 3 here are going to be ones that affect AoE and single target. So we'll start with the bottom left. Blade and Soul Parody is going to increase your critical hit chance by 50% and your critical hit damage by 50% for 30 seconds. Next up is Faded Blades. It's going to increase the attack power contribution to all Bladedancer attacks by 150% and causes them all to ignore an enemy's armor. This will also last 30 seconds. One order to the right, you got Blade Tempo. This increases your damage by a flat 30% for 30 seconds. Of course, Dualism allows Quick Strike and Precision Strike to hit twice and add an additional combo point. Just a note, Quick Strike and Precision Strike are both your offhand attacks. They will generally deal more damage. Moving over to the right one more, we got Double Q. This one will almost never be used. It increases the damage of all Bladedancer combo point generating attacks by 85% for 30 seconds. It is going to be your weakest dance, and typically you will only use it if you maybe fudge something up and use the dance out of sync and you put too many dances on cooldown. So moving on down, we'll just discuss these briefly because I'll talk about them more in the rotation section. But we have Blade and Soul Parody here and Faded Blades. These are going to be your 2 most powerful cooldowns. They will both apply to the single target section and also the AoE section. Your Blade Tempo here will typically only be used for AoE, and then when it comes to single target, if you know that you're going to be single targeting something and your Blade and Soul Parity and Faded Blades if you want to save them. And you can pop Dualism as your single target buff there until one of your other cooldowns come off. So moving on over to the right here, we got Flash of Steels on the Q keybind. This is going to be your gap closer. It also provides 2 combo points, so something to note there. We have the standard stealth here from going in Nightblade. We have Dauntless Strike. This is going to be similar to Lethal Poison from the Assassin tree. It will debuff the target, making them 5% more chance to critical hit them. So if you don't have an Assassin in your raid, you can play this spec and you can use Dauntless Strike to fill in that void. We have Reprisal. This is only able to be used after a block or a dodge, and since your dodge chance is so high in Bladedancer, you'll be able to use this more often. I keep this on my R keybind and manage it separately because if you put it in the macro, it has the potential to mess up your rotation. So just make sure that if you do put it in your macro, that you're paying attention to your offhand and main hand attacks. Moving on down to the bottom, we got the main macro here. We'll discuss this more in the rotation section. This has your 2 offhand attacks and your main hand attack in it. Moving over to the right one, we have our finisher, Double Strike. We have an Area of Effect builder here in Twin Strike. We have an Area of Effect finisher here in Compound Attack. We have our 2 channels, our 2 Area of Effect channels. This is going to make up the bulk of your Area of Effect damage, and this is why this build is so cool and so versatile. Each one of these is going to deal massive amounts of damage for 6 seconds each, and then if you take planar variation, you add another 3 seconds onto that for a total of 15 seconds of just raw AoE carnage. So it's very, very nice, and when you go to the AoE section, you'll get to see that in action. Moving over to the right one more, we got our 6th dance. So this is not a DPS dance though, this is a defensive dance. It increases your dodge chance by 50%. I believe my dodge chance right now is almost 20% and it's additive. So at 70% dodge chance, you can pop this thing in, say, a dungeon or such, and you'll take a lot less damage. As an added benefit as well, you have an ability in your tree called Strike Back, and every time you dodge, you have a 100% chance to strike back your enemy. So if you activate this, you will actually do quite a bit of DPS to a big pack of mobs. Moving on to the right one more, we got the Break Free, which is the double break free here, which is why you see the X2 there. One more, Zero Weapon Barrage. This is going to be your standard interrupt. If you've watched my guides before, you know that my 0 key is always mapped to my middle click. So I usually put interrupts or cleanses or whatever on my 0 key, anything that's important, so it's easily accessible. Right, one more, we got Defensive Poets. This is going to be a defensive toggleable. At the cost of your energy or regeneration rate being reduced by 5 per second, you get increased movement speed 15%, reduced damage taken by 5%, and it heals you for 1% of your max health every 2 seconds. I don't ever really use this, but you can use it. It has its uses in open world, and if you're having issues with damage soak and such in raids, you can give it a shot, toggle it on and off as needed. Over one more to the right, we got Sprint. This is a increased movement speed by 50% for 24 seconds. It has just about nearly a 50% uptime if you wanted to keep spamming it, so very powerful movement buff there. I really like this skill. It's probably my favorite movement buff across all the classes and souls that I've played. It's really, really powerful stuff there. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about K alerts here for a second. As you can see, I do track quite a few different K alerts there, so go ahead and take a look at that. I have all 6 of the dances right here on the same spot. That is because you can only have 1 dance active at a time, so it will tell me how much time I have until that dance wears off, at which point I can activate another dance. Moving over to the left, this is Dauntless Strike. This is the lethal poison type of ability that increases the critical hit chance of you and your raid by 5% so long as you maintain that debuff. Moving over to the right, we have a couple different buffs that are Bladedancer specific. This one here you will get after you use a finisher. When you use a finisher, you'll get 3 stacks of a buff that will increase your next 3 attacks with Bladedancer abilities by 75%. So you do want to make sure that you're using an offhand, main hand, offhand attack for those because your offhand attacks do hit more. But we'll discuss this in more detail in the rotation section. Moving over to the right one more, we have another buff that will increase your weapon and attack power, weapon damage and attack power by 4% per stack for a total of 5 stacks, equaling out to a 20% increase in weapon damage and attack power. Now in order to do that, you do have to critical hit, which is why we lead out with Blade and Soul Parity typically with our first dance. But again, we'll talk more in detail about this in the rotation section. Just know that this is here to track so that you know when you have your 5 stacks. So that's it for K alerts, guys. Next, I guess we'll go ahead and talk about the single target rotation. The single target rotation isn't too bad, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. First thing you're going to do is you're going to pop off your Blade and Soul Parity. The reason for that is because when you use this, it increases your crit chance by 50%, and every time you crit, you get a stack of Duelist Pose, which increases your attack power and weapon damage by 4% each for a total of 20%, so you want to try and get that buff up as fast as you possibly can, and Blade and Soul Parity will definitely help you get there quicker. So first thing you're going to do is hit that Blade and Soul Parity. After that, you're going to use Flash of Steel, which is going to be your gap closer. Once you get in, you'll have 2 combo points. You're going to hit a binary strike, which will be your 1 key, and then you're going to use a finisher to finish up and make sure that your offhand attack is available for the first ability you use after that finisher. So once you do that opener, you're going to start in with a quick strike, which is going to be your 1 key, followed by a binary strike, which is also your 1 key, followed by a precision strike, which is going to be shift and then your 1 key, followed by another binary strike, which is again your 1 key, and then a finisher. So you can see it's relatively easy if you use the macro that I provided. Everything, all your builders will be on your 1 key. The only thing you'll have to change is you'll have to use the shift modifier from time to time. So now that we talked about that, that's going to be the main rotation that you use through almost all your dances except for one, which is going to be dualism. The reason that dualism is different is because when you use it, it makes your offhand attacks gain an additional combo point. So your quick strike now awards 2, and your precision strike now awards 3. So it changes up your rotation just a little bit. So we'll go ahead and talk about that for a second. So when your dualism comes up, first thing you're going to do is you're going to use your quick strike, which is your 1. You're going to use binary strike, which is also 1. And then you're going to use quick strike again, which is 1 again. And then a finisher. So 1, 1, 1, and then your finisher, which is 2. After that, you're going to move to block 2, which is binary strike, which is your 1 key, precision strike, which is your shift, and then 1 key, and then binary strike, which is your 1 key again, followed by 2, which is your finisher. So you can see you're still going to be, the main rotation is going to be 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, shift 1, 1, 2, and then you're going to go back to the original 1, 1, 1, 2 again, and then 1, shift 1, 1, 2 again. That's the dualism rotation. Once dualism wears out, you'll go back to the original single target rotation, which will simply be the quick strike, binary strike, precision strike, binary strike, or 1, 1, shift 1, 1, 2. So you can see it kind of streamlines it a little bit if you can use most of your abilities off of the 1 key and just use the shift modifier. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what that looks like. Alright, let's go ahead and cast our energy manipulation on ourselves. We're going to go ahead and cast Blade and Soul Parity, followed by Flash of Steel, binary strike, finisher. And we got our 1, 1, shift 1, 1, 2, same thing, keep going, 1, 1, shift 1, 1, 2. You can see it's pretty simple rotation. It just takes a little bit of muscle memory, that's all. So you can see that we're in the 50s here, or we were in the 50s. We probably will again once we finish. So not too bad DPS here. We're about to have a 0 tick of Blade and Soul, so we'll pop Dancing Steel to extend the duration of our Blade and Soul Parity, and then begin with Faded Blades and a finisher. Then we're going to want to make sure that we use an extra ability there, because we want to make sure that our offhand abilities are available for the first ability after a finisher. So we're going to keep going, 1, 1, shift 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, shift 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, shift 1, 1, 2. Now I'll show you what the dualism looks like. So 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, shift 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2. You see this is very, very simple, very easy to do. This just takes a little bit of muscle memory to get down. As you can see, we're still doing about 50k or so. Not terribly crazy DPS there, but still pretty good. Blade and Soul Parity is back up. So we're going to go back to our original rotation again. So 1, 1, shift 1, 1, 2. So as you can see, I mean, if we kept going and if I wasn't narrating, we would probably be closer to the 51 or so, 52k mark. But it does pretty well for single target for being you know what it is really powerful single target AoE type hybrid. So that's it for the single target. Now I guess we'll go ahead and I'll show you what the AoE looks like real quick, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. The area of effect rotation is really simple. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to pop your Blade and Soul Parity. Again, it's not your strongest dance, it's pretty close though, and this is going to allow you to stack up your duelist pose. If you already have your 5 stacks of duelist pose from a previous fight and it haven't wore off yet, you can start off with Faded Blades if you want, but I typically would just recommend doing Blade and Soul Parity just to make sure that you're covered. So the first thing you'll do is hit your Blade and Soul Parity. After that, you're going to immediately go into your Dancing Steel and 100 Blades, followed by your planar variation, at which point you'll start spamming your Twin Strike, which is your area effect builder, and then using Compound Attack, which is your area effect finisher. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, so Blade and Soul Parity followed by your Dancing Steel. You can see this is doing massive amounts of damage. Then we go to our 100 Blades. We're in the 240s or so. Remember, planetary variation is only affected by blade and soul parity and blade tempo. And as you can see, we are in the 270s or so we're doing pretty good for being in a melee DPS spec here. And you just keep using your builder until you see we're almost done with blade and soul parity there. We're not going to be able to quite catch the dancing steel there, but as soon as it's almost done, you'll hit your faded blades and you'll go into your dancing steel. After that, your 100 blades will be off cooldown. You can go back into that. You can see that we're about 40 seconds in and we're doing still about 220. So really, really bursty, enough burst to really get you high on those charts. If you keep going for a while, you'll eventually settle into probably the high 170s or so, or probably high 100s somewhere. Just because a lot of it is the burst. You can't hold on to it for too long. And since both of our major cooldowns are down now, we're going to go ahead and use blade tempo followed by dancing steel. And then once dancing steel is done, we'll use our 100 blades. And we are going to save our planar variation for when blade and soul parity comes up, because blade and soul parity will affect it. Even though blade and tempo will affect it as well, blade and soul parity will buff it a lot more. So as soon as it comes up, we're going to go ahead and pop it and use our planar variation. So there we go. You can see it's going to really buff our DPS back up there. And then our dancing steel is now back up as well. And 100 blades should be back up shortly after that. And you can see we're still doing high 170s or so pretty respectable numbers for being a melee DPS primarily spec. And this is almost over 2 minutes, so pretty good stuff there. But that's all, guys. If you have any questions, as always, please leave them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content, and I will see you guys next time.